The stars outside the viewport were cold and silent, their light dimmed by the thick black mist that filled the edge of the sector. The human fleet drifted there, 20 warships and 3 colony transports, engines quiet, crews silent. None of them spoke. None of them wanted to. The orders from the Galactic Council still echoed in their minds, every word a knife. Humanity is hereby exiled. You are forbidden from returning to civilized space. Enter the void or face extermination. The void. That name was enough to make entire species shiver. No fleets ever came back from it. No probes returned data. It was not simply empty, it was a graveyard, a place where sensors failed, where strange energy storms swallowed ships whole. The Council used it as a death sentence, as a silent execution for those they wanted erased without a war. The humans had no choice. Their fleets were shattered from the last battles, their colonies burned. Earth itself had been bombed into a wasteland. Billions were dead. Now, the survivors, the last fragments of a once proud species, were being forced into the dark, not as conquerors, not even as refugees, but as exiles. The lead ship. Solace of Dawn moved ahead, its hull scarred from past battles. Captain Elias Rain stood at the bridge, his hand gripping the edge of the console as the rift appeared before them. It was not a natural thing. It looked like a wound in space, a swirling tear of black and violet, rotating slowly, pulsing like a heart. Beyond it, nothing could be seen. Not even starlight. His crew whispered behind him, voices low, heavy with fear. "Captain, if we go in, we may never come out." Rain didn't answer. He couldn't. He stared at the swirling rift. And for the first time in his life, he felt something colder than fear. It was acceptance. Humanity had been cornered, stripped of allies, crushed beneath the boots of the Council. And now they would vanish. History would erase them, just as it had countless other doomed species. "Signal the fleet," he said finally, his voice flat. "All ships, prepare to enter. We do not stop. Do not turn back. If the void kills us, so be it." The cum officer hesitated. "Sir, what if there's something in there? Something worse than death?" Rain's eyes narrowed. "Then we die fighting. It's all we have left." The fleet aligned, engines powering up one by one. The rift's pull grew stronger, tugging at their ships like a predator drawing prey closer. The colony transports trembled as they followed, their civilians silent in fear. Mothers held their children close. Old veterans gripped rifles they would likely never fire again. One by one, the ships slipped into the rift. The stars vanished behind them. The light died. The void swallowed them whole. For a moment, there was only silence. No sound, no light. No stars. It felt as if the universe itself had ended. Instruments flickered. Navigation systems failed, one by one, unable to read anything. The ships drifted, blind and powerless, their crews gripping consoles, waiting for the inevitable. But then, something stirred in the dark. It was faint at first. A sound, or maybe a vibration, felt more than heard. The hulls of the ships thrummed, as if something vast and distant was moving around them. The void was not empty. It was alive. The sensors picked up. Signal, it was ancient, buried beneath static, repeating every 30 seconds. A slow, rhythmic pulse, not of any known origin. The signal carried no words, no recognizable code. Only a strange harmonic tone that made every hair on the crew's neck stand up. "Captain, we're detecting a structure," the navigator whispered, her voice shaking, bearing 30 degrees. "Range unknown. It's massive." "Bigger than a moon, sir? It's not natural." Rain's jaw tightened. "Put it on screen." The viewport flickered, static fighting the feed. And then the image came through. It was there, emerging from the darkness like a ghost. A colossal structure miles across, suspended in the void as if gravity meant nothing. Its surface was black, covered in glowing crimson veins that pulsed in slow rhythm, matching the signal. Dozens of towering spires rose from its hull, some broken, others intact, all covered in strange runes that no one could read. It wasn't dead. Lights flickered across its surface like watching eyes, and deep within its core, something glowed, a burning red sphere, alive, beating like a heart. The crew went silent. No one spoke. Even the computers seemed afraid to make a sound. The signal changed. It was no longer a simple tone. A voice began to emerge, deep, mechanical, and yet almost human. The words were distorted, broken, as if speaking from another age. Inheritors. At last. You arrive. The bridge crew froze. Elias Rains, fingers curled into a fist. Is this an AI? The voice spoke again, louder this time. We waited. We watched. Others came, unworthy. All were erased. But you were chosen. Enter, or be consumed by the void. The massive structure opened. Panels along its side shifted and retracted, revealing a glowing hangar large enough to swallow a battleship whole. The humans stared at it, every instinct screaming that stepping inside would be a mistake. But behind them, the rift began to shift. The same strange force that had pulled them in now started to churn violently. Storms of raw energy formed, flashes of light tearing through the black mist. Their sensors screamed. Warnings? They couldn't stay here. Captain, if we don't move, those storms will tear us apart. The helm officer shouted. Elias Rain looked at the glowing hangar, then at the violent storm behind. Death waited in both directions. But the voice still echoed in his ears, deep and commanding. Enter, or be consumed. Helm, Rain said, his voice steady. Take us in. The Solace of Dawn moved forward, its engines roaring back to life. One by one, the other ships followed, desperation overcoming fear. The hangar swallowed them. The red light bathing their hulls as they passed through the energy barrier. Inside, there was no hangar. No walls, no floor. Only a massive empty space lit by floating red orbs, each the size of a fighter craft. The human ships hovered as if in zero gravity, yet their systems stabilized, as though something unseen had taken control. The voice spoke again, now clearer, almost warm. You were cast into the dark. Now you shall rise from it. This place is not your grave. It is your throne. The crew stared at one another, the words sinking in like a seed planted in their minds. Fear shifted, twisting into something else. Hope, or maybe something darker. The red orbs began to orbit the fleet, scanning each ship, their lights pulsing faster. One by one, the human systems powered up beyond their known limits. Shields strengthened, weapons recalibrated. Energy surged, limitless and cold. Captain, our reactors. They're reading at triple output, the engineer stammered. Weapons efficiency just spiked by 200%. Whatever this station is, it's changing us. Elias Rain looked at the burning sphere deep within the station's core, its glow like a rising sun in the dark. He didn't know what this place was, or why it had chosen humanity. But as he watched the red light crawl across their ships, transforming them into something new, one thought burned in his mind. They were not dead. They were not gone. And maybe, just maybe, the galaxy had made a mistake. Far beyond the void, the Galactic Council celebrated. Reports came in. The humans had entered the rift and vanished. No trace, no signal, no threat. The Council believed their problem was solved. Drank, they laughed, they declared the age of humanity over. None of them knew that, deep in the darkness, humanity had found something far greater than survival. They had found the power to rise again, and when they came back, it would not be as beggars, they would come as kings. The human fleet drifted inside the massive station, surrounded by an endless void. There was no sound except the low hum of energy that vibrated through every hull. Red lights pulsed around them like the heartbeat of some ancient creature. The structure itself felt alive, watching them, testing them. Captain Elias Rain stood on the bridge of Solace of Dawn, staring at the glowing core far in the distance. It pulsed like a sun trapped in a cage, sending ripples of light across the empty hangar. Every time it pulsed, their instruments spiked, energy readings beyond anything humans had seen before. Status report, Rain said, his voice steady but low. The engineer swallowed hard. Sir, every system is stable. It's more than stable. Our shields are reading 6 times stronger than before. Our reactors are no longer burning fuel. It's like the station is powering us directly. The crew exchanged nervous glances. No one knew if this was a gift or a trap. Nothing in the void was supposed to be alive, yet here they were, sitting inside a machine older than their species, being given power they couldn't understand. The deep, mechanical voice returned, rolling through every ship's speakers without permission. You are chosen. Others have come, but none were worthy. They were erased. The bridge went silent. Everyone's breath caught. Others, the navigator whispered. What does it mean? What happened to them? The voice did not answer their question. It only continued. This throne was built for rulers. For those cast aside, the unbroken, the exiled. Take what is offered, and the void will serve you. Refuse, and you will die here like the rest. On the screen, the hangar around them began to shift. Red light crawled along the walls as massive shapes emerged, constructs of black metal, shaped like colossal arms. They moved slowly, gracefully, as if waking from a long sleep. Each one reached toward the human ships, scanning them with beams of deep crimson light. The crew flinched as the beams passed through their hulls, feeling like a shiver down their spines. Systems came alive, weapons recalibrated themselves, and navigation screens lit up with symbols they had never seen before. Captain, something's interfacing with our systems, the comm officer said, his voice trembling. It's rewriting our targeting software, adjusting our engines. It's giving us jump coordinates. Rain frowned. Jump coordinates? To where? Before the officer could answer, alarms blared across every ship. The outer sensors, still flickering with interference, suddenly caught movement. Dozens of ships had entered the void, not human. Display lit up with their profiles sleek. Predatory warships bearing the insignia of the Dreylock Combine, one of the Council's deadliest member races. Hunters. They weren't here by accident. The Council hadn't just exiled humanity. They had sent assassins to finish the job. Sir, incoming transmission, the comm officer muttered. It's the Dreylock flagship. The screen shifted, revealing a tall insectoid figure with mandibles that clicked as it spoke. Its voice was cold, filled with satisfaction. Humans. The Council feared you might survive. We cannot allow that. You will be erased here, and the void will swallow your ashes. There will be no memory of your kind. The transmission ended before Rain could reply. Outside, the Dreylock fleet fanned out, moving with precision, their energy weapons charging. They were confident. They thought humanity was helpless, cornered and weak. But then, the deep voice of the station spoke again. Test them. Prove you are worthy of the throne. The glowing core pulsed brighter, and the constructs around the human ships extended, linking directly to their hulls. New weapons powered up systems no human ship had ever carried before. Cannons of swirling black energy, launchers that glowed with red light, and a strange distortion field that wrapped each vessel like a second skin. Captain, our firepower just tripled, the weapons officer whispered. In these readings. It's not plasma, not rail. I don't even know what this is. Rain's jaw tightened. He looked at the incoming Dreylock fleet, their weapons hot and ready, their commanders certain of an easy slaughter. He thought of Earth, of the billions who had died, of the Council laughing as humanity was cast into the dark. Target the lead. Ship, he ordered quietly. Let's see what this station has given us. The Solace of Dawn turned slowly, its new weapons charging. The black cannon at its side opened, a swirling orb of dark red energy growing inside. The crew felt its unnatural coldness, as if space itself was bending around the weapon. The Dreylock flagship fired first. A volley of plasma lances streaked toward the human fleet, bright enough to light the void. But before they could hit, the distortion fields shimmered, and the lances vanished, as if swallowed by nothingness. The humans stared. Then Rain gave the order. Fire. The black cannon roared silently. No sound, no explosion, just a pulse of light that stretched across the void and touched the Dreylock flagship. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the ship began to crumble, not explode, not burn, but disintegrate. Piece by piece, its hull faded into dust, vanishing as if erased from existence. No escape pods, no debris. Only silence. The rest of the Dreylock fleet froze, their formation breaking. The humans didn't wait. The other warships, now armed with the station's weapons, unleashed their fire. Beams of impossible energy cut through the void, erasing ship after ship. The Dreylock tried to flee, engines screaming, but the human fleet moved faster than they. You ever had before? Chasing them down like predators? Minutes later, the Dreylock fleet was gone. Not a single ship remained. The humans stood in stunned silence on their bridges, barely able to comprehend what had just happened. They had been moments from death, outnumbered and outgunned. Yet they had annihilated one of the galaxy's most feared hunter fleets in minutes. The deep voice returned, softer now, almost approving. You are worthy. The void recognizes your strength. This station will serve you. Learn its ways. Claim its power. From this day, you are no longer prey. You are the rulers of the dark. The glowing core pulsed, and for the first time, the humans saw more than just the hangar. Their navigation systems lit up, showing a star map, but not one they recognized. It showed hidden routes through the void, passages that bypassed normal space entirely, leading to places the Council could not reach. Captain, the navigator whispered, eyes wide, these routes, they can take us anywhere, could strike. At any system without warning, the Council, they wouldn't see us coming. Rain looked at the glowing core, feeling the weight of the moment. Humanity had been cast into the void to die. Instead, they had found a weapon. No, more than that. They had found a throne, a seat of power that could make them feared across the stars. For the first time since the exile began, a small smile touched his lips. Not of joy, but of something sharper. They wanted us erased, he said quietly. Now, we'll erase the ones who sent us here. Outside, the red lights of the station flared, casting the human fleet in a bloody glow. Void no longer felt like a grave. Felt like a kingdom waiting for its rulers to rise, and humanity was ready to claim it, far beyond the void. The Galactic Council sat in their towers of glass and light, unaware of what had just happened. The Dreylock Combine had gone silent, their fleet missing. The Council believed it was simple interference. They didn't know the truth, but soon they would, because the humans weren't just surviving. They were preparing to return, and when they did, they would not come back as refugees. They would come as something new, as the first true rulers of the void. The void was quiet again, but the silence was no longer terrifying. It felt obedient. The massive station pulsed gently like a sleeping beast, its red glow reflecting off the battered hulls of the human fleet. They were no longer broken refugees. Their ships, once scarred and fragile, now thrummed with new power-alien power. But humanity's rebirth did not go unnoticed. The Dreylock fleet's disappearance had not been hidden for long. The Galactic Council was already moving. Rumors spread across civilized space like wildfire. Entire systems whispered that the humans, the exiles, had destroyed one of the Combine's most feared hunter groups in the cursed void. Some said it was impossible. Others quietly believed it. On the bridge of the Solace of Dawn, Captain Elias Rain stood over the glowing star map the station had provided. It showed countless hidden routes through the void, each leading to places no species dared travel. But there was something else on the map. New signals, the Council's response. Sir, the navigator said, her voice tense. Our long-range scans just lit up. A fleet is coming, bigger than the Dreylock. At least 100 ships. Multiple species. Looks like a cleansing operation. The COM officer swallowed hard. They're not here to negotiate. They're here to burn us out, Rain stared at. The glowing core far below, the heart of the station, and felt no fear. The Council thought this would be like any other extermination. They didn't understand. They didn't know what humanity had become. Signal the fleet, he said calmly. Bring all ships into formation. We're not running. The voice of the station, deep and cold, rolled through the air once more. Another test. Do not hide. Show the void you are worthy of its throne. The human ships spread out, their new weapons humming with energy. The void seemed to respond. To them, its swirling mist bending around their hulls like a cloak. Red light flickered along the edges of space, almost as if the void itself was alive. And on their side. Moments later, the Council's armada emerged from the rift. They came like a tide-sleek golden cruisers from the Seralith Dominion, towering dreadnoughts from the Jarn Horde, and swarms of smaller strike craft from HFY. Dozen other species, they filled the void with their formation. 100 warships locking weapons on the humans below. Their confidence radiated across the cums. A broadcast opened, and a tall, silver-skinned Seralith commander appeared on the screen, his voice dripping with arrogance. Humans, your defiance ends here. You were cast out for a reason. You do not belong among the stars. Today we finish what the Council began. There will be no graves, no remains, only silence. The transmission ended. The enemy ships powered their main cannons. Hundreds of targeting locks painted the human fleet, and still, Captain Rain did not give the order to move. Instead, he spoke quietly, more to the station than his crew. Show me what you can do. The core of the station flared. The red glow turned blinding, filling the hangar and bleeding into the void outside. The human fleet vanished, not by moving, not by jumping, but by dissolving into shadow. They became outlines, flickering silhouettes swallowed by the mist. Their energy signatures dropped to zero. To the Council fleet, they had simply disappeared. Confusion rippled through the enemy formation. Their scans went wild, unable to detect anything. The humans were gone, as if erased from existence. Then the first strike came, a single pulse of black energy. Fired from somewhere in the swirling dark, lanced through the void. It touched a Seralith cruiser, and the ship simply folded in on itself its hull, collapsing into nothing, its crew vanishing without a scream. No explosion, no debris, just erasure. Panic erupted. Unknown fire. Captains shouted across the open channel. I can't see them. Where are they? Another pulse. A second ship vanished. Then a third. The Council fleet fired wildly, plasma bolts and rail rounds tearing through empty space. But nothing hit. The humans were everywhere and nowhere, moving like phantoms, striking and disappearing before sensors could lock. Inside the solace of dawn, the crew watched as the station's systems projected tactical overlays onto their screens. They could see everything the enemy positions, their weak points, their shield cycles. It was as if the void itself whispered the enemy's secrets into their ears. Captain, the weapons officer said, awe in his voice. It's like, we're ghosts. They can't even touch us. Rain's eyes stayed fixed on the enemy fleet, his expression calm but hard. Then we make sure they never forget us. The human fleet opened fire in full. Black lances of energy crisscrossed the void. Each shot precise, each hit erasing another warship from existence. The smaller alien strike craft tried to flee, but the distortion fields around the human ships dragged them back, their engines sputtering before their hulls tore apart. Within minutes, the once mighty Council armada was in chaos. Half their fleet was gone, the rest scattering in blind terror. Some tried to retreat through the rift, but as they reached it, the station acted again. The rift closed. With a deep, earth-shaking hum, the swirling tiers sealed shut, trapping the remaining ships in the void. Their escape was gone. The voice of the station echoed across every human bridge, cold and final. No witnesses, no survivors. The void does not release its prey. The humans didn't hesitate. They finished the job. One by one, the remaining Council ships vanished into the mist, their signals blinking out forever. No wreckage remained. No distress calls escaped. When the last enemy ship was gone, the void returned to silence. The rift opened again, calm and still, as if nothing had happened. The humans drifted there, their ships glowing faintly red, untouched. Not a single casualty. No, not a single scratch. For the first time, the crew began to understand what they had found in this place. This was not just a station, it was a weapon, a fortress, a kingdom built for those who could survive the dark. "Captain," the come officer said softly, "the council will notice. Those ships, they'll know something happened when no one comes back." Rain's expression was unreadable as he looked out at the swirling void beyond. "Good," he said. "Let them notice. Let them fear." Far away, on the council's core worlds, whispers were already spreading. The Draylock fleet had vanished. Now an even greater armada had gone silent. Entire races began to panic, their leaders demanding answers. Was the void itself alive, or had the humans become something else? Some suggested closing the rift entirely, sealing it forever. Others, quietly, suggested something far more dangerous, sending every major fleet into the void at once to crush humanity before they could grow stronger, but none of them truly understood. The humans were no longer hiding, they were no longer prey, and every fleet the council sent only fed the legend of the void, the legend of the exiles, would become phantoms, and soon they would not wait for the council to attack. They would bring the void to the galaxy. The galaxy had started whispering, whispers of fleets vanishing without a trace, the cursed void no longer being empty, but alive. Of the humans, the broken, exiled, nearly extinct, emerging from the darkness with power no one understood, entire. Systems trembled. Merchant ships avoided the rift. Civilian networks banned all talk of the humans, hoping silence would make the fear fade. But the fear only grew. On the bridge of the Solace of Dawn, Captain Elias Rain watched a stream of intercepted transmissions play across the holodisplay. Alien voices spoke in hushed tones. The Draylock hunters never returned. An entire Seraph fleet gone. No wreckage, no distress signals. It's them, the humans. The void has made them monsters. Rain stood still, his hands behind his back, staring into the swirling red glow of the station's core far below. The humans had not left the void yet. They were still learning, still adapting, still transforming. But already fear was spreading, faster than any weapon. The deep mechanical voice of the station spoke again. As it always did when the humans were ready to take another step, "You have survived. You have destroyed those who hunted you. Now you must build. A throne is not a single blade. It is an empire. The void will give you tools. You must decide how to use them." The human fleet gathered around the colossal station as it began to shift. Its spires rotated, enormous panels opening to reveal shipyards' vast skeletal arms, stretching into the mist, powered by energy no reactor could match. The humans watched in silence as entire construction platforms rose from the depths of the void, ancient machines coming alive for the first time in ages. "Captain," the engineer whispered, "these yards. They're already building, not ships like ours, bigger, faster, and different. Look at the designs." On the holoscreen, schematics appeared, ships shaped like blades, with curved organic hulls glowing red at their seams. They were alive, or something close to it, grown from the void itself. "These aren't warships," the weapons officer said, awe creeping into his voice. "They're predators." The station's voice returned. "The void will give you a fleet, but an empire cannot rise with weapons alone. Choose your path, terror or dominion. Will the galaxy kneel because they fear you, because they seek your protection?" Rain said nothing. He simply watched as the first of the new ships took shape, black and red. Pulsing faintly with the same energy as the station's core, deep down, he knew the answer. Humanity would use fear, but not fear alone. They would offer peace, on their terms. Hours later, the first new ship slid free from the skeletal arms. It was twice the size of the Solace of Dawn, its surface rippling as if alive. As it moved, the void around it bent, the mist pulling toward its hull like a tide. The humans named it Nightfall, the first void-born warship. More followed in days. The exiled fleet had doubled its size. Each ship was more powerful than anything the Council had ever fielded. Each one could vanish into the mist, strike without warning, and erase entire fleets. The humans had gone from survivors to predators, and then the first surrender came. It wasn't a battle. It wasn't even planned. A small alien colony ship belonging to the fragile Thalry species stumbled near the edge of the void. When they saw the human fleet emerge, glowing red, the mist curling around their hulls, they expected death. But Captain Rain did not destroy them. Instead, he opened a channel. "This is Captain Elias Rain of the Voidborn," he said, his voice calm and deliberate. "We will not harm you. You will carry a message. Humanity is no longer prey. Those who seek protection will find it with us. Those who seek to hunt us will vanish like the rest." The Thalry captain, trembling, agreed. They spread the message far and wide, and the galaxy listened. Soon, small ships began arriving near the void, not to fight, but to pledge. Minor species, merchants, even deserters from council fleets. They were willing to kneel, willing to swear loyalty, if it meant surviving the coming storm. Not everyone came willingly. The Galactic Council, panicking as entire border worlds whispered allegiance to the Voidborn, launched their largest attack yet. A combined armada of 200 ships, drawn from nearly every major species, gathered near the Infinity Gate, a massive jump construct on the edge of civilized space. Their plan was simple: trap the humans, overwhelm them with sheer numbers, end the threat before it could spread further. But the humans weren't waiting. On the nightfall, Rain stood beside his officers as the holomap lit up with the Infinity Gate's location. The station's voice filled the command deck, a low growl like distant thunder. "The Council brings its horde. You strike first, or let them strike you." Rain's eyes hardened. He thought of Earth's burning cities, the billions who had died in silence while the Council looked on. Thought of the Draylock hunters, laughing as they herded human refugees toward death. "Set course," he said quietly. "We strike first." The Voidborn fleet moved, slipping into the mist. Like shadows, the void itself seemed to carry them, folding space around their ships. When they emerged, they weren't near the Infinity Gate, they were inside it, bursting from the mists behind the enemy armada. The Council fleet never saw them coming before. The first alarm even sounded, the nightfall unleashed a ripple of black energy. The wave tore through space itself, bending and warping reality. Half a dozen enemy ships simply came apart, their hulls vanishing in red light. The rest of the human fleet followed, their weapons tearing through the panicked armada. The void itself seemed to join the attack swarms of mist, curling into the shapes of claws, tearing into enemy craft, distorting sensors, ripping apart formations. The Council fought back with everything they had. Plasma beams cut across the void. Dreadnought cannons fired until their barrels overheated. But it was like striking shadows. The Voidborn ships phased in and out, their distortion fields swallowing incoming fire. Minutes into the battle, Infinity Gate itself became the target. The Solace of Dawn and Nightfall moved in tandem, charging their black cannons. Twin pulses of dark red energy hit the massive construct, its shimmering rings cracking, its core imploding. The explosion tore through space, a silent eruption of light and mist. The gate was gone. The Council armada broke. Those who could still flee tried to run, but the void closed around them. One by one, they vanished into the mist, their signals snuffed out like dying stars. When it was over, only the humans remained. Not one Voidborn ship was lost. Not one human life was taken, and the Infinity got the Council's key to rapid deployment. Across the sector was now a glowing field of drifting debris. Rain stood on the bridge, the mist curling gently around the nightfall. His officers stared at him, waiting. They all knew what this meant. The humans weren't just surviving anymore. They were rising across the galaxy. Panic turned to dread. Civilizations began closing their borders, locking down communications, trying to pretend the Voidborn weren't coming. But it was too late. The humans had been cast into the void to die. Instead, they had become its masters, and now the galaxy would have to kneel, because the exiles had risen. And they were no longer human alone. They were voidborn. The galaxy had grown silent, not because the wars had stopped, but because fear had spread faster than any news could travel. The Draylot Combine had been erased. The Seralith Dominion had lost 2 entire fleets. The Infinity Gate, once the beating heart of the Council's military reach, now floated in pieces across a dead sector, and the whispers were everywhere. The humans control the void. They can strike anywhere. The stars go dark when they come. On the bridge of the Nightfall, Captain Elias Rain listened to intercepted transmissions from across the sectors. Alien voices spoke with panic, disbelief, even desperation. Entire colonies had begun abandoning Council protection, choosing to align themselves with the Voidborn. Not because they wanted to, but because they were terrified. Some begged for alliances, others offered tribute. A few even volunteered soldiers and engineers, swearing loyalty in exchange for survival. And those who refused to acknowledge the Voidborn disappeared. In the vast lightless depths of the station, the colossal AI core pulsed brighter than ever. As if feeding on the fear spreading across the stars, its voice echoed across every human ship, deep and commanding. The galaxy bends, but it does not kneel. To rule, you must break their will. To rule, you must take the stars themselves. Rain stood silent for a moment, watching the holographic star map as new routes appeared. These were not simple paths through the void. They were points of power, systems rich with resources, worlds controlled by the Council, and most important of all, stars. The AI's voice rumbled again. The stars give them light. The stars give them life. Take the stars, and they will crawl to your throne. The humans had already seen hints of what the station could do. Its energy readings were not just for weapons. It could drain entire energy fields, destabilize reactors, and bend space itself. But this was something greater, Captain. The chief engineer said, her face pale. The AI is giving us new coordinates, systems where we can turn off stars. The bridge went silent. Every officer stared at her. Turn off, the navigator repeated. The engineer nodded slowly. Not destroy. Not supernova. It can drain their energy, pull their light, and heat into the void. It's like it feeds on them. Those systems would go dark. Frozen, lifeless. Rain's gaze hardened. The galaxy had left humanity to die in darkness. Now they would bring that darkness to the galaxy. The Voidborn fleet moved. Their first target was a Seralith-controlled system, home to 3 thriving colonies and a military outpost. The Seralith commanders were confident. Their orbital defense grid was unmatched, their fleet ready. They believed they had prepared for the Voidborn's tricks. They were wrong. The Nightfall arrived first, not through a normal jump, but by tearing a hole through space itself. The rest of the fleet followed, emerging silently above the primary star. The Seralith fleet scrambled to respond, but before they could even lock weapons, the humans acted. The station itself didn't move, didn't need to. From deep within the void, it extended a beam of crimson light across the rift, striking the star at the center of the system. The light around it dimmed. Its surface cooled. And then it died. Not in a violent explosion, not in fire, but in silence. The star's light faded, leaving the system in a black, frozen void. The planets below began to ice over instantly. Seralith fleet faltered, their systems failing as the sudden cold drained their reactors. The humans didn't fire a single weapon. They didn't need to. The enemy ships drifted, as helplessly as the darkness claimed them. One by one, the Voidborn fleet picked them off, erasing each ship with a single, silent pulse. The colonies below sent desperate calls for help, but no one came. When the humans finally left, there was nothing but a dead, lightless system behind them. The galaxy erupted in panic. The Council held emergency meetings, but no one could agree on a plan. Some called for every fleet to unite against the Voidborn, to overwhelm them before they could strike again. Others argued for surrender, for negotiation, for anything that might spare their worlds. And while they argued, more stars went dark. Voidborn struck without warning, vanishing into the void and reappearing above distant systems. Entire sectors plunged into freezing darkness, their populations fleeing in terror. The humans did not always kill. Sometimes they let the survivors escape, so the stories could spread. Every world began to fear the same thing, the day the stars would go dark. On the solace of dawn, Rain stood in his quarters, staring out at the swirling mist beyond the viewport. The AI's voice, now familiar and constant, rumbled in his mind. They cast you into shadow. Now you are the shadow. They will kneel, or they will freeze in the dark. For a long time, Rain said nothing. He thought of Earth, of the billions. Buried under cold skies, their homeworld left a husk. The galaxy had not cared then. And now, he felt nothing for the colonies watching their suns vanish. They made us monsters, he murmured.
How?
Now they can live with the monsters they created. The AI pulsed in approval. The throne is nearly complete. Soon the void itself will move with you, not just your fleet, but the throne itself, a moving citadel, a weapon no star can withstand. Rain turned to face the star map. Dozens of systems now marked in red, their stars gone cold. The galaxy was collapsing in two. Chaos. Civilizations were surrendering without battles. Even some council races, once proud and arrogant, begun sending envoys, swearing loyalty, if only to be spared. Humanity had been exiled to the void to die instead. They had become something the galaxy could not stop, and as the nightfall drifted, through the black, pulling the mist around its hull like a cloak, Rain gave the order. Prepare the throne. We take the core worlds next. Far beyond, on the council capital, panic spread as reports flooded in. Entire sectors were gone. Trade routes abandoned. Refugees poured in by the millions, all with the same warning. The Voidborn are coming, and when they arrive, the stars will die. The council called it their last hope. Infinity Gate once destroyed by the Voidborn had been rebuilt. Bigger, reinforced with layers of energy shields. Surrounded by the largest armada the galaxy had ever seen. Over 300 warships, drawn from every major species, hung in a protective formation around the massive construct. This was no longer just a gateway. It had become a fortress and a trap. Every ship's weapons were charged. Every sensor scanned for the faintest flicker of mist. Entire swarms of drones patrolled the void, their sensors designed to detect the Voidborn's phase fields. The Council wasn't here to defend. They were here to end it once and for all. Inside the Saralith flagship Radiant's High Commander, Sareth paced the command deck. His silvered skin shimmered beneath the glow of the holotable as he addressed the gathered officers. "We hold the gate at all costs," said, his voice sharp and commanding. "The humans cannot be allowed to pass into council space again. If we crush them here, the legend dies. If we fail, the galaxy falls into shadow." No one spoke. They all knew the stakes. They all knew what had happened to the fleets before them. Entire armadas had vanished, erased without wreckage, their crews lost to the dark. None of them wanted to be next, but none dared retreat. "Signal. All sectors," Sareth ordered. "When the Voidborn arrive, we unleash the trap. The gate will collapse, space itself around them. No phase fields, no escape. Today, the humans die." The officers nodded, though unease flickered in their eyes. In the deep void, far beyond the council's sensors, the Voidborn gathered. Captain Elias Rains stood on the bridge of the Nightfall, watching the swirling mist curl across the viewport. Around him, the fleet hung silent, their black holes glowing faintly red, distortion fields pulsing softly. Behind them, the colossal station, the throne, hovered like a living shadow, its spires twisting, as if sensing the coming battle. The AI's voice, deep and resonant, filled every human ship. They gather their armies. They think numbers can save them. They think their gate will trap you. But the void does not trap its rulers. The void consumes. Rain's jaw tightened. The humans had crushed fleets, frozen stars, erased systems. But this battle would be different. The Council wasn't just trying to defend. They were trying to erase humanity completely. "Status," Rain said. The navigator answered, her voice calm despite the tension, all ships in formation. The throne is charging its core. Phase lanes are ready. We can bypass their outer defenses and strike the gate directly. The weapons officer added, "The AI has given us new codes. We can drain their shields, or their reactors, but only one at a time." Rain looked at the star map. The Council's formation was tight, layered, designed to bleed them dry with overlapping fields of fire. Even with the Void's power, direct assault would be costly. He turned toward the glowing core of the throne, its energy pulsing through every screen and every circuit. "Suggestions?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. The AI's voice rolled through the fleet. "Darken the gate, drain its power, leave their fleet blind and helpless, then end them."
Rain nodded once. "Do it."
The battle began, not with weapons but with silence. The Council fleet, waiting, scanning, searching, suddenly saw their sensors flicker, then fade. The stars around Infinity Gate dimmed, as if the light itself was being stolen. One by one, the sensor drones failed, their feeds turning to static. The massive energy shields protecting the gate flickered, their power draining without a single shot fired. Panic spread through the armada. "Power drain. Shields dropping," shouted a Jarn officer on one of the dreadnoughts. "I can't tell, reactors are offline. Something's pulling it all into the void. Find them," Sarath roared aboard the Radiance. "Find the humans." But they were already there. The Voidborn fleet emerged from the mist like phantoms, their hulls shimmering as they phased back into normal space. They were everywhere at once, slipping past the crippled sensor nets, their weapons glowing with unnatural energy. The first strike was devastating. The nightfall unleashed a pulse of crimson light, not at a ship, but at the gate itself. The massive construct, now powerless, began to twist. Its stabilizers buckled. The swirling core at its center destabilized, collapsing in on itself. The Council fleet scrambled to respond. Hundreds of ships turned their weapons on the Voidborn, unleashing a storm of plasma, rail slugs, and energy beams. The void lit up with fire, but the distortion fields held. Incoming shots vanished into nothing. Others bent away, curving harmlessly into the mist. And those few that struck did no real damage as the Voidborn ships phased. Their hulls shimmering and reforming seconds later, the humans struck back. Black energy lances cut through the void, each shot erasing an enemy ship without a trace. Small strike craft tried to swarm the Voidborn, but their engines sputtered as the void drained their power, leaving them adrift before being torn apart. Within minutes, the Council's formation began to crumble. Entire sectors of the fleet went dark as their reactors died, their ships left helpless in the silent void. Sarath slammed his clawed hand against the hollow table, his silvered face twisting with rage. "Collapse the gate," he ordered. "Bring it down on them. If we die, we take them with us." But it was too late. The solace of dawn and nightfall moved in unison, their cannons charging. Twin pulses of black and crimson energy struck the gate, its core imploding into a swirling singularity. The explosion tore through space, the shockwave consuming dozens of Council ships instantly. The Voidborn had already phased away there, ships slipping through the mist like shadows. When the light faded, the Infinity Gate was gone. So was most of the Council armada. The survivors, barely a fraction of the force, drifted helplessly in the void. Their systems dead. The AI's voice echoed across every human ship, low and cold. "The last gate is broken. The last army shattered. The galaxy lies open. The throne moves to claim it." Rain stood on the bridge, his gaze fixed on the drifting wreckage. The Council had thrown everything at them, and failed. "Signal the fleet," he said quietly. "We take the core worlds next." The mist around the throne flared, swallowing the fleet as they vanished back into the dark. The Council had no more gates, no more fleets, large enough to stand against them, and far away, on the glittering worlds of the Council core. Fear turned to despair. The Voidborn were coming, and nothing could stop them now. The Council core worlds were built on arrogance. Glittering cities stretched across entire planets. The towers of crystal and steel pierced alien skies. The fleets guarding these worlds were vast, their banners of gold and silver flying proudly. The Council. The core worlds were untouchable fortresses of wealth and power that no enemy could ever reach until the humans came. The first sign was not a fleet. It was darkness. Across 3 sectors, stars dimmed one by one. Entire trade routes fell silent as ships vanished. Communication networks went offline. Then, without warning, the mist appeared above Valori's Prime, the jewel of the Council's empire. At first, the people thought it was a storm, strange curling fog descending from the upper atmosphere. But the mist wasn't air. It was the void itself, seeping into real space. And from it, the Voidborn fleet emerged. The Nightfall led the charge, its massive black hole glowing red along its seams. Behind it, dozens of Voidborn warships phased into existence, their distortion fields rippling as they broke through the veil. The throne itself followed, dwarfing even the largest Council dreadnoughts. Spires twisted and pulsed, drawing the mist around it like a living crown. On Valori's Prime, alarms screamed across the city's Council defense fleet scrambled into orbit. Air formations tight, their weapons charged. Orbital cannons powered up along the planet's surface, sending beams of golden light toward the approaching fleet. The first salvo struck the Voidborn head-on. The golden beams tore through the mist, slamming into the Nightfall and solace of dawn. The people of Valoris cheered as the explosions lit the sky. But when the smoke cleared, the Voidborn were still there, unharmed. The distortion fields had absorbed the blasts, warping the energy into nothing. The Voidborn fleet moved forward in silence, their weapons not yet firing. On the bridge of the Nightfall, Captain Elias Rain watched the planet grow closer, his face calm and cold. "Status?" he asked. The navigator's voice was steady, defensive. "Fleets forming 2 rings around the planet. Surface cannons are active. All Council channels are broadcasting demands for surrender." The weapons officer glanced at Rain. "Orders, Captain?" Rain's gaze shifted to the throne, visible through the viewport. The AI's voice echoed through every ship, deep and commanding. "Crush their fleets. Leave their cities intact. They must see your power before they kneel." Rain nodded. "The fleet. But leave the planet breathing for now." The battle began like thunder. Hundreds of Council warships unleashed their full arsenals. Plasma lances, rail slugs, and missiles filled the void, lighting up the darkness like a second sun. The Voidborn responded with silence. No evasive maneuvers, no counterfire. They simply advanced, their distortion fields swallowing the storm. Then, the first Voidborn volley came. Black lances of energy cut through space, each beam precise. The Council's front line of cruisers simply vanished, their hulls dissolving into red mist. Escape pods tried to launch, but the void swallowed them too, erasing any chance of survival. Panic swept through the Council formations. Their admirals screamed orders to hold the line, but their ships were no longer listening. Reactors failed. As the throne's energy drain spread across the battlefield, pulling the life from every system it touched, one by one, entire wings of the Council fleet went dark, drifting helplessly as the Voidborn tore through their ranks. From Valori's Prime, the people watched in horror as their defenders fell. The golden banners of the Council fleets burned. Their wreckage pulled into the mist, and then the throne moved closer. Its spires rotated, and the mist thickened, covering the skies of Valorie's Prime. The cities below fell silent as every power. Grid flickered, lights died, engines failed. Even the planet's artificial suns, orbiting high above to keep the world warm, went dark. The core world, the heart of the Council's empire, was now a silent, frozen shadow. On the Radiance, the last Council flagship still operational, High Commander Sereth glared at the fading holomap. 90% of their fleet was gone. Valoris was defenseless. The Council leaders on the planet were screaming for answers, demanding a miracle. Sareth turned to his officers, his silvered skin dim under the emergency lights. "This is no longer a battle," he said quietly. "This is a conquest. The humans, the Voidborn, they are not just here to destroy us. They want us to see." One of his officers, trembling, asked, "Then what do we do, Commander?" Sareth looked at the growing shadow of the throne outside the viewport, its pulsing spires blotting out the stars. "We run," he said finally. "We run, and we warn the others. The council is finished." But before they could act, the Nightfall appeared beside them, silent and enormous. Its weapons were not charged. Its cannons did not glow. Instead, a transmission opened. Captain Rain's face appeared, his eyes like steel. "Leave," Rain said simply. "Take your surviving ships and spread the word. The council is dead.
Oh.
The galaxy has a new throne now.
Oh.
Those who kneel will live. Those who resist will vanish." Sareth stared at him, hatred burning in his alien eyes, but he said nothing. He gave the order, and the surviving council ships retreated, vanishing into jump space. The Voidborn did not chase. Instead, the throne hovered above Valori's prime, its spires casting a blood-red glow across the frozen cities. The mist flowed down to the streets, curling through empty plazas and shattered skylines, and then across every surviving network, every active screen. Elias Rain appeared. "This is the voice of the Voidborn," he said, his tone calm but final. "The council is no more. The void is now your law. You will serve, or you will freeze in the dark. The choice is yours." No one spoke. No one resisted. Across Valori's prime and across the entire Corallian, leaders began sending messages of surrender. Entire fleets lowered their banners. Civilizations that once ruled the stars now begged to kneel before humanity. The humans had not just survived exile. They had ended the oldest government in the galaxy. And now, only one thing remained: securing their rule, because not everyone would kneel. Not yet. The galaxy was broken. The council was gone. Its fleets shattered. Its core worlds under the blood-red shadow of the throne. Entire civilizations had bent the knee, their leaders swearing loyalty to humanity, not out of love, but fear. But not everyone. Submitted far from the frozen core, in the lawless fringe of the spiral arm, the last defiant powers gathered. The remnants of the Seralith, Dominion, the Jarn Worklands, and a dozen other species who refused to bow had formed a desperate alliance. Had no gates. They had no capital. Had nothing left to lose. But they had a plan. At the center of the abandoned Carthos system, a trap waited. Dozens of hidden fusion bombs, massive energy warheads, and repurposed planet-killer weapons floated silently. Among the debris, the Voidborn came. They would trigger the trap, collapsing the system into a chain of artificial supernovas. Their hope was not victory. It was annihilation, caking the throne and the humans with them. On the Nightfall, Captain Elias Rain stood before the holomap, watching the enemy positions flicker to life. His officers spoke in calm, measured tones, but none ignored the obvious danger. "They're hiding something," the navigator said. "Too few ships, too organized. They want us to come to them." The weapons officer's fingers hovered over the controls. "It's a trap, Captain. They're willing to burn a whole system to stop us." The AI's voice filled the bridge, low and steady, vibrating through the hull. "They fear you so much, they will destroy themselves to harm you. This is not a threat. It is an opportunity. Let them light their suns. The void will feed." Rain's eyes narrowed. He had seen what the throne could do, how it could drain the energy of stars, freezing entire systems in silence. AI was suggesting now it was more. He gave a single nod. "Prepare the throne. Let them spring their trap." The Voidborn fleet arrived at Carthos silently, slipping through the mist as the system's broken moons drifted aimlessly. The enemy's small force, barely 50 ships, formed up near the shattered remains of an ancient orbital station. They did not fire. They waited. When the throne entered the system, its spires casting a crimson glow across the wreckage, the enemy. Moved energy spikes lit up across the debris field. Massive warheads powered on, their cores flaring white. One by one, they detonated, tearing the system apart. A chain reaction began, collapsing Carthus's dying sun into a roaring explosion. The void rippled. Space itself bent, and then it stopped. The explosion froze, its blinding light dimming to a faint dying glow. The fire, the shockwave, the fury of the supernova of it collapsed inward, pulled into the throne's core. The spires of the ancient station twisted and flared, drinking in the unleashed energy like a starving beast. The system went silent. The enemy ships, still caught in their firing arcs, had no time to react. Their reactors flickered and died, drained in an instant. They tried to flee, but the void dragged them back, their engines sputtering. Why? One by one, the Voidborn erased them. Black lances of energy swept across the field, dissolving every defiant vessel into mist. The last resistance in the galaxy. Gone. The throne pulsed brighter than ever, the energy it consumed spreading across the Voidborn fleet. Every ship surged with power, their distortion fields expanding, their weapons glowing hotter. The humans were no longer just using the void. They were becoming it. Across the galaxy, news spread fast. The last rebel fleet was gone. The Carthos system, once a graveyard, was now a permanent shadow, its sun extinguished, its planets frozen in darkness. There were no more armies to fight, no more governments to resist. The void had a ruler, on Valori's prime. Now the capital of the new Voidborn Dominion, Rain stood on the highest balcony of the throne as it floated above the city. The skies were a permanent crimson hue, the mist curling across the horizon like a living storm. Below, leaders from 100 species stood in silence. They had been summoned, not as equals, but as subjects. The ceremony was not for discussion. It was for submission. The AI's voice filled the air, its deep tone echoing across the planet, carried through every device, every broadcast. The old order is gone. The void is now the law. Humanity was cast into nothing. Humanity became everything. You will serve, or you will join the dark. The alien leaders lowered their heads. Not one dared speak. Not one dared resist. Rain looked out over them, his face unreadable. The war was over. The galaxy was his. But he knew this was only the beginning. Prepare the fleets, he said softly. To his officers, we have a galaxy to hold. And there are always those who think they can defy the void. The AI pulsed, its voice almost satisfied, and we will show them. What happens when they try? Far beyond, on the edge of known space, the last free colonies whispered in fear. Some believed the humans would stop now, content with their throne. Others whispered darker things, that the humans were no longer just human, that the throne had changed them to something more, something the galaxy would never escape. And in the endless dark between the stars, the mist curled and spread, carrying the silent shadow of the throne across the void. The exiles had been cast out to die instead. They had returned as rulers, the stars themselves had bent to them, and now the galaxy belonged to the Voidborn forever.